Hello, this is Carl Andren of Andren Software Company with a video on installing from download. When you order the program, I send out instructions for download via email and also put in the mail a mini manual and either the CD or USB flash drive as ordered. So when you get this email, you'll see that there are several aspects to it. There is a link for downloading the program installer. There's a link for videos such as this, and there is an access code that you will need to run the program in other than demo mode. So if we click the link to download the program, and we click it once, we get this page. This is the SeaMarks download page. Now this has the link for downloading the installer, and it also has links for test NOAA charts and whatnot if the downloaded one doesn't match where you are. Typically it will be for South Florida. So we'll click this link and double click it, and you get an information thing on the bottom here. You have several choices of what to do. You could run it, you could save it, or you could quit. So in this case we'll run it, and what this means is that we'll download the program to a temporary folder and run it. And so you then get a user account control, which asks you if you really want to run this thing, and it is a verified publisher. So we say yes. And at this point we don't need the web thing. We'll only need the installer. So we go here and we get our installer wizard. So we push next to go. The first screen here is the license agreement. Basically the license agreement, like most license agreements, says it's for your purposes and your purposes only. In the case of SeaMarks, you can put the program on up to 3 computers, say one at home, one at work, and one on the boat. And you should not try to turn it into a different program for you to sell. So assuming you accept the agreement, then you go next. This is a screen that typically works with the CD or USB, saying leave it in the drive while running the program the first time. In this case, since we're not using the CD or USB, we don't need that. Now this screen shows that it's going to put the program, install it into a destination folder of SeaMarks on the local disk C hard drive. You can put it into a different folder if you want. In previous times, if you had purchased the program years ago, it would be in a Loran GPS folder, and you may want to put the new program in that old folder, so you could change it here. You push next, and this basically says you're going to have a program folder called SeaMarks, so that when you go over and push the Windows button here, you will get a SeaMarks folder in the list. So we'll push next on that, and you can go back if you want to, or you can go forward, or you can quit at this point if you want. So we'll push next, and it will start installing. Basically the installer copies folders, or creates a folder on the hard drive called SeaMarks. It copies files into it, and it creates a shortcut. And we see that the shortcut is already over here, and This says run SeaMarks now, but so far I haven't been able to get that to work properly. So we'll finish that, and we'll go and run SeaMarks by double-clicking this icon. Now, the first thing you get with SeaMarks, since you haven't had it before, is you have to add the access code. So let's go over here, back to the email, and copy this access code. Since there's no handy copy thing, I will do Control-C to do the copying. You'll find that's a standard Windows activity, a shortcut. So then Control-V will paste it in. You had the choice of running it as a demo, which means you didn't have an access code. So we'll push the OK key here. It's version 10.1, last updated 2.14.20, and made by Andron Software Company. So if we push OK, we get a notice that as a first-time user you might want to personalize the program, and it's done by changing the user preferences, and you could also do that later from the tools menu as it says. So if we push yes, we get the user preferences screen. Now this screen at the top says this program hasn't been personalized yet. This line is going to be the printout title. Whenever you print a book or print maps or something, the title for that will be these words. So what we'll put here is the user's name for now. Now we'll do it with the proper letters. Now we can check the center latitude and center longitude. This is for St. Petersburg, Florida. The center latitude and longitude, as described over here, is used to suggest Loran chains and to initialize new files, and it will also provide a means for the program to identify if you are hand entering data which is far afield. This also has the inlet latitude and inlet longitude. In this case, it's for Johns Pass #1 sea buoy, and it's used primarily to figure range and bearing from. Now, if you're going to do Loran things, you look at this section here. It has all the permutations of the 4 Loran secondary stations, all possible combinations for the 7980 Southeast U.S. chain. It also has in number 7 the old East Coast chain, which was fired up before the 7980 chain, and all West Coast of Florida Loran A chains, if you have some really old data. Now you can hide that Loran stuff if you click this button here, or you can unhide it. This button sets the duplicates of how close 2 waypoints can be to be declared duplicates, and other criteria. Number formats such as how latitude and longitude is displayed. You will notice I put no space between 83 degrees and 13 minutes, just to save space on printouts. If you have 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and you want to put latitude, longitude, description, comments, and all things on there, you don't want to be wasting space. So since we changed something, we will save the settings and push OK done. And this warning basically says that the CAP charts, which are the NOAA charts, are not to be used for navigation. Basically, going by NOAA charts, you can't guarantee you won't run aground. Now I've put into the installer a test file. This is a whole bunch of bogus waypoints off of Key West, Florida. This test file is basically intended to show you all the things you can do with the program on the spreadsheet. It is currently in the display mode of display with TDs and lat long. So you have Loran TDs. They call them TDs because in Loran you're basically measuring the time difference of arrival in microseconds. So off of Key West there would be 14,000 and some microseconds on the W slave and 43 or so thousand microseconds on the Y slave. So, and then you would have the latitude and longitude, in this case converted from the Loran. And you can tell that by, in the chain column, there's a 2. If it was entered as latitude and longitude, you would have a 0 here. And if it was entered as latitude and longitude and back converted to Loran, it would be a -0. Put a minus sign on anything that's converted to. In Key West, it is often found that a better chain pair to use is the W and Z pair, which would be chain 3. Now, you also have a rating column. The rating column basically is how good is the point, or something else about it. It's a reference point. You can put whatever you want in there, any 4 characters. And I'd say 4 stars is a great point. Nothing or NC or anything you want. No good. I recommend you keep no good points in your list, because if you go across that no good point again in the future, it looks great on the recorder, you may waste time on it. Then there's the description. There's 32 characters of whatever the thing is. You have an icon. You have a choice of icons. If you click here, you get a drop-down list of all kinds of icons you could have. You get a depth column. You get the chain column, which is the Loran chain pair that was chosen. You get a date code column, basically when was the point entered. This list is from quite a while ago, 1994. And there's comments, and there's a scroll bar at the bottom, so you can scroll to see the rest of the data. The comments field is 90 characters long, which I calculate to fit one full width of an 8.5 by 11 page. So it takes a line by itself. There's a group column. A group column is used in some GPSs, but not all. You can, in other words, group your waypoints and keep them organized that way in your GPS. There's a color column where you put the first letter of the color, excepting in the case of gray. I use A instead of G because G is green, and M is magenta, R is red, things like that. And there's a range and bearing to the reference point, and since the reference point is in this case it's reference to Key West Northwest. There's no inlets per se in Key West, so this is a buoy in the Northwest Channel. And then there's a column for a symbol, which don't use much anymore, but if you wanted to show your graphics on a chart, which you can do this way, display on a chart, you'll get this kind of chart. And what you display in this case is set for numbers. The grid numbers, spreadsheet numbers. Now, the chart operations menu was blanked out before, and now it's active, and so you can go to charting options and set, instead of numbers, maybe you want to have descriptions. So if you OK that, you can see what a mess you have. There's other ways of setting that. You could do dots. And dots will give you a better idea of the organization of the points, but not necessarily any information about them. There is a selection here of identify the waypoint, which you can do. Let's see, what is this waypoint here? It's the Key West Northwest Channel. Voila. And as I said, there are different ways of displaying, and that will be a function of other videos. Right now what I'm going to do is go back to this display function, scroll back to the beginning, and I say this concludes basically installing from the download. Now on the other hand, in a few days you will get the CD or USB device in the mail. So if we plug that in, we'll get a in this case a folder to view files selection. My computer seems always to want to go to this particular selection. It shows you what files are on the CD, or in this case USB device. Now what we want are these BSB and CAP files, and there's lots of them, and so forth. So if we're in the SeaMarks program, there are several ways of getting them installed. We could either rerun installation by double-clicking the installation program and going through it again, or we can use Windows Explorer, which is this thing, and select all of these things and drag them over to local disk C, and in local disk C we want to put them in the SeaMarks folder. So if we do this on local disk C, we get SeaMarks, and we want to be showing the files over here. So we could drag and drop all these files over to the SeaMarks folder, and we can actually drag and drop the entire batch if we wanted to. Another way to do that is to go to the File menu in SeaMarks and go to Backup Restore Files. Now this screen tries to get everything you want done. In other words, it tries to set up for the place where SeaMarks is and the place where the remote drive is, and sometimes it makes mistakes, but you can always click the down button here and pick, let's see, it was supposed to be the CD DVD drive, but it is really the D drive here, so we're okay with that. And you noticed before that there was a backup and a waypoints thing, so this shows DBF files, and that's because down here show files of type is set to DBF, which are the database files for SeaMarks. Now we could transfer any from here over to there or back. So what we're going to do is change to bathymetric charts, and we're going to change these to bathymetric charts, and we're going to select all and transfer them. And when that's done, you'll see the little weight thing go away. Now I'm going to set the NOAA charts and do NOAA charts over here. Select them all, transfer all the CAP and BSB charts. And that takes a little while. Now, if you were installing from the USB or USB or CD drive, this would have taken place more or less automatically. Okay, that takes care of all of that. Now on the drive, there are some other things. Let's see, we can show all the files on the drive, and there was a set of waypoints. Oh, here they are. You can move these waypoints. Let's say you really wanted Florida, well, not the test file. You would want Florida local recs offshore. Want to move them over to the over to your list of stuff, and so forth. So that basically is how you can get the NOAA charts into your program. So now if we go and display on a NOAA chart, we'll have all those NOAA charts to use. And if we display on a Key West NOAA chart, for example, we'll see that we have, we're still showing the points as dots, and this is a bathymetric chart of Key West. Unfortunately, it's not showing all of the Key West area, but that's not to be helped. Now it's also showing Loran lines. If you don't want to do that, go to Chart Operations, Charting Options, and deselect Loran lines. And again, with Chart Operations, you can go back to charting names, for example. Now, in this case, the file that we have has some waypoints named and some waypoints not. They're just numbered. So that constitutes not only installing from the download, but putting your necessary charts into the program once you get the CD or USB device in the mail. And thank you for listening.